What's going on, people? Georgio Savvides here, founder of the Hip Hop Orchestra, as well as the host of the Hip Hop Orchestra Presents podcast. And I got a really exciting announcement to finally make with everyone, is that we have our very first official sponsor for the podcast. Now, they are an amazing, amazing company called Eldon's Vault, who are extremely dedicated in bringing you the very best in officially licensed merchandise from pop culture. And when I mean the very best, I mean the very best. They provide things like keyrings, caps, t-shirts, to Funko Pops, to statues from all over, such as DC, Marvel, Disney, The Mandalorian, Harry Potter, music artists from all over the place, and they are ridiculously good. I've got a couple of things to show you on offer at the moment. This trust me, their stuff is amazing. So, t-shirts, like I mentioned, like the one I'm wearing right now. It's got Rocky, right here, which I absolutely love. Or, like I said, also got Funko Pops as well, 3.75 inches and 10 inches. I've got a couple of 10 inches right here for you. I've got Post Malone right here, and I've also got Biggie right here, who I absolutely love. These are so sick. Eldon's Vault, trust me, they are amazing. Now, I'm going to leave the link below in the video right here, and also in the description below as well in all future videos from the podcast. But trust me, Eldon's Vault are amazing. Website is www.eldonsvault.co.uk. Get in touch with them now and start buying ASAP. But also, before I forget as well, I just want to say the biggest thank you to Eldon's Vault for sponsoring the podcast. It means the absolute world to me. Thank you. And trust me, get in touch with them right now. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And peace. Welcome to another brand new edition of the podcast, and today we're joined by another amazing guest, award-winning music interviewer, radio presenter, and podcaster, Sofia Loporcaro. How are you doing? You okay?
I'm well, cheers. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you. How's things? Okay?
Good. I mean, I'm out here in Texas. It's very, very hot. Otherwise, yeah, everything's good.
Can imagine. How's Texas at the moment? You moved there from London, right, to Texas?
Yes. Yeah, I moved here in February of 2019 from London. And yeah, I mean, I've just kind of been doing my own bits and bobs. There isn't really much industry out here, honestly. So I've been very much, kind of sticking to my own projects, hopefully trying to relocate. I've got my eyes on LA. But yeah, it's been fine for now during COVID. I mean, it's a red state, so, it's kind of been a little bit of the Wild West here. But on the bright side, most of us are vaccinated now, so we're actually seeing a return to normal. I've been to a few gigs, which has been just surreal because, we haven't been able to do that in ages. So
tell me about I miss gigs so much. So what was the last one you went to?
Yeah, so I mean, I work with So Far Sounds here, so I went to one with them that I hosted, which was incredible and very special. But another one that I did, which was amazing, my friend Jade Bird played at a local venue here because she's actually living here in Texas now, and she did a little Southern tour. That was like my first proper gig back, and it was like I didn't realize how bad I needed it until I actually sat down and enjoyed the show. It was perfect.
Because you started, talk about So Far Sounds, you started volunteering with him 5 years ago, is that correct? 2016?
Yeah, good. Look at you doing your research. I appreciate that. I was listening to your episode with Sunny before, and he was mentioning that too. I mean, Sunny, mate of mine, and we met through that panel he was talking about in the episode. I was on that panel, that's how I met him.
Oh, wow.
And we were talking about, or you two were talking about how well you both do research, which I really appreciate.
Thank you.
So cheers. But yeah, so my microphone stand is slowly sinking. So we're gonna just, okay. This is an awkward moment that you can or cannot cut out. It doesn't matter. If this is what people want to see the pros dealing with mic hardware, then sure. But anyway, so far, I found out about So Far initially just through an artist I followed on Facebook, but when I was in uni, I went to the University of Westminster. And my campus was the one up in Harrow, North London, middle of nowhere. Really cool draw. Like when I moved, by the way, to London, and they're like, "Ooh, you get to come and study in London." They're like, "No, you get to come and study in Harrow. It's a lie." But the nice thing about my campus was that we had the music program on my campus, and just all of the arts programs were there. So we used to have a lot of gigs. And one time I was helping out with my student radio station, doing some interviews with some of our student artists at one of the gigs. And I got chatting to the drummer in one of the bands, who's now a good friend of mine, Joe. And he was telling me, we have a Sofar gig coming up. Do you want to come? And I was like, oh yeah, I've heard of this thing. It sounds so great. I'm in. So I went, absolutely fell in love with. Later found out that Joe also volunteered for Sofar and he wanted to put my name forward. And yeah, the rest is history. I've been with them either in London or here for 5 years.
That's incredible. I've heard, obviously everyone knows about Soulfire Sounds. I've been to a couple myself. They're amazing. Do you have any personal favorite events that you've been to through them so far?
Oh, see, now that's just tough.
And
Who have I seen that's been really phenomenal? Damn it, I'm really gonna have to give this. I think just because there's so many over 5 years that you really have to kind of go through your memory.
yeah,
I mean, getting to, work on shows in London was obviously such a treat that's the city I got to start in, because I think that London just has one of the best, like, and most diverse music scenes in the world. Even especially compared to American music scenes, there's such a better like coexistence between genres that we don't have as much here. But I also have to give a particular shout out to one that we had here. Shout out again to now she's no longer our city leader, but she's been kind of running the show here in Dallas, Esther Calloway. She booked a phenomenal show in early 2020 pre-lockdown for Black History Month. And it was just the quality of the music and the spoken word poetry and the rap and just everything that we were hearing that night was like something that could stand toe to toe with London. And considering that we are a much smaller music scene compared to, to London, that was impressive. It's up there with one of the top shows I've ever been to.
that's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing. And you said, were you in LA before coming to London into Texas?
No, I'm saying that I'm trying to get to
LA.
LA.
You're trying to get to LA, my bad.
There. Yeah, no, you're fine. What's my migration pattern? So born in Montreal, lived in Virginia for a little bit when I was little, back to Montreal for many years, moved to Texas to a suburb called The Woodlands, which, fun fact, is the suburb that the album The Suburbs is about. I finally found a verbatim clip of Win Butler telling Zane Lowe that it's about The Woodlands, Texas. After that, because I hated living there so much. It's very suburban. I was 18 when I moved there. Nothing for an 18-year-old to do. So that's when I ended up moving to London for 3.5 years. It's where I did my degree. It was very much me being like, I need to leave now. But then, bless it, London got expensive. Working in radio is very difficult in London. And I realized that the sort of traditional radio path wasn't really for me. So I packed up, and my parents have since moved here. So, just to peek behind the curtain, everyone, I do live with my parents because I do fun things. None of them make me money. So I'm here now.
Oh, brilliant. But talk about, your growing up. You actually wanted to be an actress, didn't you, growing up? Is that correct?
Where did you find this? And when did I say that?
I do my research.
Jesus. When I was really little, I wanted to be an actress. Actually, wait, I think I mentioned that in that Buzzkill article I did. Maybe that's where you found it. Yeah. When I was a little girl, I wanted to be an actress. And I stopped taking like acting lessons at 10 years old and was like, I should have kept doing it. I've started taking some acting and singing classes through lockdown, but that's more for my own fun. I really want to do community theater as a pastime, but I feel like working in the music industry, as far as like a career passion, if you will, this is what I want. But yeah, definitely when I was little, I was like, oh God, my center of attention.
Oh, that's brilliant. But talk about 10 years old. That's when you started piano and singing, wasn't it, as well?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep, that's it. Yeah, I started taking piano lessons. Unfortunately, that's when I stopped doing acting. I should have kept doing both,
Mm.
but I couldn't sing for the life of me when I
I
was a
bet you
kid.
could.
No, you should have like blessed. When I was really little, like my piano teacher, who was a singing teacher as well, she was like, "Oh, I feel like there's something there. We need to work on it, but we can get there." And my parents would be in the other room, like, "What the hell is she talking about? Like, our child cannot sing." Um, Luckily, my piano teacher was correct in that with a lot of work I could do it. So now I sing again very much as a pastime. I debate sometimes if I ever want to write and put music out, but that would probably be more for me, not something that I really want to be like my thing, you know.
Mm.
But I love it.
And are you still into indie by chance? I know that in your teen years you're into
Yeah.
indie big time. You're still into indie nowadays as well.
Oh yeah, I am. Luckily, my taste has really diversified a lot. I mean, when I was little, I was a huge pop kid. Like I was like Hillary Duff. I've been to her concerts. Lindsay Lohan. We don't need to talk about that. Like my music taste as a child was not like again. Mm-mm. So if I can do it, y'all can do it. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, I mean, bless. Like my parents do have great taste in music, but they're not like music people. So I didn't grow up like constantly listening to a lot of different music other than like smooth jazz when my dad was cooking. Like, you know, it was kind of that or like the Eagles and like Sade in the car. And also
Mm.
like when you're a child, you do not understand Sade. Like you're
Yeah.
not, your little brain's not ready for that. So yeah, but anyway, I got into like high school and I wanted to be cooler and
Mhm.
edgy. If you're listening to this in podcast form, I just did the little like finger indication
Yeah.
thing. Um, so I got into more indie. And then I think, and to moving to London and so far's credit, that's what really opened the doors for me to other genres, and made me finally be like, I want to be curious about everything. I don't want to be like a disingenuous teenage tryhard anymore because I'm an adult now. But yeah, it's really informed the way that I approach my career now too, is just like any music that is good I want to hear and I want to be as open to it as I can be. And it is so much more fun and so much more rewarding when you open yourself to more of it. So, yeah,
100%.
I'm glad. But I
Yeah.
do have two Fleet Foxes tattoos, so there's definitely a good piece of indie still left in me.
Because I talk about the lyrics. What are some of the lyrics to do with your mum's birthday as well?
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. Okay. It's like Nardwar levels.
I know.
I'm gonna like pull out my social security number soon.
I'm not
Jesus.
that
Okay.
good yet, but I'm
Okay,
getting
good.
there.
I mean, I don't think anyone should be that good because that's like where it gets a little scary. I like to say that, like, with my interview and my research style, I try and be like a non-invasive Nardwar because,
Yeah.
bless, like, there's sometimes I love Nardwar,
Yeah.
follows me on Twitter somehow, but
Really?
yeah, Nardwar follows me on
Wow.
Twitter. Oh no, it's extremely validated. But also sometimes I'm like, dude, you know things that you're not supposed to
I
know. Like
know.
where like you dug into some personal files or hacked someone's computer and I don't know, but I do love Nardwar. Anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it's funny. I mean, I love Fleet Foxes and also Robin Pecknell, the front man, and his sister Aja, who manages them, just followed me on Instagram, and that was
Wow.
maybe one of the best moments of my life. Because I mean, it's inked on my body. I'm sure you can figure out I'm a big fan of Fleet Foxes, but the 3rd of May, the song that I have my 2 tattoos based on, is, I mean, again, yes, it's my mom's birthday. It's also my grandparents' wedding
Oh,
anniversary.
wow.
On a smaller note, it's the day that I handed in my dissertation. And there's a line in the song that's about things falling in line on this particular date. Because for the band, it's one of their members' birthdays, and it's the day that they released their album, Helplessness Blues. And yeah, so sorry, I just, you know what,
That's
screw it.
okay.
I'm gonna tell this story. I was like, should I tell this story? I'm gonna tell this story. So I was in Brooklyn right like a few months before the pandemic. I went because my very dear friends Another Sky, who are an amazing band from London, everyone should listen to, had come over to play a show at Baby's All Right. And I got there early and I noticed that one of the members from Fleet Foxes was in the opening band. So I walked up to him and just without thinking, I was like, hey, I should show him my tattoo. Here's the thing. The 3rd of May is also this person's birthday. So without the context of it is my mother's birthday, it looks like I've just gotten a stranger's birthday tattooed onto my wrist. And I still think about that situation and it makes me nauseous because like I really love boundaries and I really love respecting boundaries. And like, this has come across not the way that I was going for. So anyway, so that's a story that I've now shared in a public realm and I'm letting you keep that. So there you go.
Thank you. I feel honest. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, again, even those of us in the industry, we do embarrassing things sometimes. We do our best, but we fall on our face. We're human.
We all do. Don't worry about it. We all do.
Yeah.
But what did your mum think of the tattoo in the end? Did you like it? Yeah. Or is that another story altogether?
Yeah, I mean, my mom hates the fact that I have tattoos because she's just, I mean, you know, traditional Italian family, as much as like my parents are super lovely, open-minded, wonderful people, but tattoos are definitely one of their spots that they're like,
Oh, really?
Now, I think there's the kind of like guilt of like, but it's about you. So I think that she tolerates it and she appreciates the gesture. But yeah, she doesn't love that I have tattoos in general. And I have 9 and counting.
Got 9 now. Bloody hell. All lyrics or all different things now?
No, they're all kind of bits and bobs. I mean, I've got the 2 again based on Fleet Foxes. So there's this other one that I have. You can, if you're watching a video, yeah. So this is also the same song, and I actually got this the day before I left London. It's based on the line in that same song that says, "I am only owed this shape if I make a line to hold," and it's basically about just how as human beings we need the connections and the friendships and the human connection is crucial to us being alive. And I was at a time where I was dealing with depression and kind of like not knowing what I wanted from my life, and thinking about the people that I loved and cared about just really anchored me. So I decided to kind of put that there as a reminder. And then most of my other tattoos aren't really music related. They're just kind of, again, random things that are meaningful to me. But I do have one other one that I do like to talk about, and that's a bouquet of flowers that I have on my arm here. And that is in honor of the band Hers, who, you know, since you're in the UK, I'm sure a lot of your audience is in the UK, you're probably well aware of Hers. So they passed away in a car crash a few years ago. I actually saw them play a week and a half before they passed.
Wow.
Yeah. So I interviewed them one time. I didn't know them well, but we'd met, and I interviewed them back in London, and then I saw them play at South by Southwest with a bunch of my mates. Yeah. A whole bunch of mates from England were over. We actually almost didn't go to their show, but the queue for something else was too long, so we ended up staying and just having the best time. I went to get to chat with them later. They remembered me. They added me to their guest list at the Dallas show. And even though I'd been at South by for a week and I was exhausted, I was like, I'm going to this show. I love Hers. And then a week and a half later, obviously I opened my phone. I find out what's happened. I was devastated. Weirdly, just because I didn't grow up with a lot of like the big classics, it was the first like artist death to really, really hit me. Even more than, I know this is going to sound controversial, but like even more like than Bowie or Prince, just simply because I didn't grow up, you know, the same way that some people do with these close relationships with these iconic artists. But I knew these guys personally, even in a small way. And I was really sad and upset to watch 2 people that were at the precipice of something phenomenal. Like they were going to be a band that were going to leave their mark, I think, that people were going to remember, and they were going to leave this amazing body of work. And just like that, they were gone and people were going to forget about them. And as someone who supports a lot of emerging artists, the idea of that made me incredibly sad. And then also because I was dealing with my own mental health and just this idea of not really feeling a lot of purpose from life, this idea of just being reminded of the potential of life because I was grieving that someone else's life potential had been stolen. It really impacted me. So yeah, I got this in honor of them and in honor of other similar artists who, you know, deserve to be remembered and supported. So yeah, it's a long story, but it's important to me.
Oh, definitely. And you mentioned about mental health there and depression as well. I mean, are you okay at the moment, or are you okay at the moment? Yeah.
I'm doing really, really well. Thank God. I have been for a long
God.
time. But yeah, I'm very open about it. I have OCD, I have depression, and I find it's really important to talk about them because luckily our industry is getting better at being open about it.
Hmm.
I'm very open about it on my podcast too, because many of the artists I interview also suffer from similar things. It can be like a really good way to speak on it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I've really learned how to approach my life and my career in ways that are much healthier
Hmm.
than I used to. So luckily, I'm in a good place and I'm excited about the future now.
I'm
So
so glad to hear. I'm so glad to
yeah.
hear that. And do you feel like your podcast has kind of helped you in a way, in terms of like kind of like in a therapeutic sort of way? Because
Hmm.
I realize a lot of people like kind of like they do talk about their problems, don't they, over podcasts without actually realizing it sometimes. Do you feel like that sometimes it's like helped you without you actually realizing it?
That's a great question. I don't know if it does so much in the talking about it. I mean, it's definitely empowering. I did this episode with Julian Baker a little while back,
Mm.
and she's extremely open about her own mental health. I think it's one of my favorite episodes I've ever recorded. Um, it was more that it was empowering, that particular one, of being like, we get to speak on this in a way that's going to help other people hear themselves and know that they're not alone and know that they can talk about it and overcome it and all that. But I think it's helped me more in a different way. It's sort of happened very organically. Like, as much as I love my podcast, I didn't know if this was kind of what I wanted from my life. But over the last while, more and more, I've realized that even though right now I'd really love to work for a record label and stuff, in the long term, getting to interview artists and building this thing gives my life so much fulfillment and meaning. And I think it's something I want to do for a very long time, potentially have that eventually be my livelihood, or part of it at least.
Mhm.
So it's more that it's given my life this really wonderful sense of direction. And yeah, so not so much in terms of the talking about it. While I love doing that, it's been more that, like, I'm like, oh no, I know what I want to do with myself now.
Mm. Because you've won two, don't you? Now you won two different podcasts. Is that correct? You won Before the
Yes, I have
Chorus and
to.
Solo Sounds. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
both my own. Yeah, I started both of them myself. First
Brilliant.
time doing that. Yes. I was on Amazing Radio for 3 years. I did student radio. I've done lots of random bits. But I started Before the Chorus, the interview one first, because one, I love people like Zane Lowe and Nardwar and Cheryl Waters, even like Sean Evans from Hot Ones, like
Let's
people
get
who
into that.
really,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I think genuinely think he's one of the best interviewers I've ever heard, and he deserves all the respect he gets. Um, but I felt like, as much as I loved doing my old radio show, I was very confined to like these sort of short, interviews, which never really allowed me to really unpack, like the stories and understand a human being behind music. And so I realized I needed to make my own space to do that, which is why I started my podcast. Because my favorite interviews are the ones where you come out really getting to know another human being, and not in this like invasive insider scoop on a celebrity way. I feel like just another person has kind of been in front of me telling their life story, and I feel more, I don't know, connected to the human experience through that. So I love being able to do that myself now. And
Mm.
then my second podcast, Solo Sounds, it's basically a radio show, but in podcast form. It's on Spotify only, but yeah, it's super fun. I've been having some really cool guest co-hosts on and having a blast with it.
That is so good. That's so good. Because you've spoken to some amazing people like Glass Animals, Alt J, Clipping, Future Island. Do you have any personal favorite? Well, you mentioned, was it Julie Bakefield earlier. You mentioned,
Yeah, so
yeah,
Julian was a huge
Julian.
favorite.
Sorry.
Glass Animals, definitely. Glass Animals, to give them credit as well, they were my first like big interview. So I've interviewed them twice.
Mm.
Once for my podcast last year, but also back in 2017 for student radio. And again, I was shaking going into that because I was like 20 years old, first big interview, for uni radio. For some reason, they had picked me to do it. And they were so lovely, made me feel really comfortable. So it ended up going well. And in some ways that launched my career because the plugger really liked me and she ended up giving me the Alt J interview, and things sort of snowballed from there. And also when I interviewed them again in 2020, specifically Dave, the singer, he remembered me. Like he's
Wow.
like, with everything that he's done over the last several years, he remembered who I am. And I just feel like that speaks volumes to who he is as a person. So I have a lot of time for the Glass Animals guys. Trying to think who else. I mean, clipping was huge for me. That was like, oh my God. I didn't talk about it in the podcast because I don't like kind of putting Divi Diggs in the Hamilton bubble because less like everyone drops it. But I am a big fan of Hamilton. It does have its problems, especially with like colonial past, but we don't need to unpack that right now. But from a creative standpoint, I'm a huge fan. That's how I knew about him. And then I think Clipping are one of the most brilliant groups out there right now. They're so intelligent about the way they work. It almost feels like they're kind of putting a movie on in your mind because of how, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? They're just really great storytellers. Jonathan and William are, I think it almost feels like the work of a set designer. Like they just build an environment around whatever David is singing about. So you just get these very complete thoughts and complete pictures with every song and every record. So yeah, that was a real treat. And also I think that David got interviewed by Jimmy Fallon the same day because he's
Really?
wearing the same outfit in an interview that came out the same day that I interviewed them.
Wow.
So it's like, okay, what's going on? Yeah, so that was pretty wild. But yeah, those two are all the ones I mentioned are way up there.
That's amazing. I mean, have you had the chance to talk about Hamilton? Have you had the chance to see it live at all before COVID?
Yep, I've seen it
Yeah,
4 times.
4 times. Wow. What was it like live?
Oh, it's phenomenal. So I've seen it twice live and then twice on Disney Plus. Both times I saw it live were in London because it's way easier to get tickets there than it is in the States, and it's more affordable. Yeah, it is, as much as like I said, like, and I think it's something that's become more part of the bigger like conversation now, is this idea of glorifying people that were slave owners, like is, you know, not the best. Like but like with any art form, there's always going to be work that needs to be continued to do as we all collectively learn and move forward. But in terms of the artistry, in terms of like character writing, I think there's a lot of really phenomenal parts to it. And like I'm one of those people who knows it back and forth. So yeah, it's like it feels strange talking about it now because again, I think like we all are with a lot of the art that we love, we're trying to both appreciate it and think about it critically and want it to grow and improve. But yeah, in terms of the artistry, I think it's utterly brilliant and hopefully will continue to grow and improve as time goes on.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And going back to Fleet Foxes, actually, you mentioned about
Yeah.
Robin Peckner being your dream guest on the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. It's gonna happen one day for sure. Trust me.
Oh, I've been trying. I know it will happen. I'm just like, okay, but when? So
When?
yeah, I believe in that one though. I know that'll be just such a wonderful conversation to have. So I hope.
I definitely will do. It definitely will do. But
Oh,
how was your time at University of Westminster? Did you enjoy it there?
yeah.
Yeah.
I was okay with my degree. I won't lie. Some of my teachers were phenomenal. Some of them, I'm not going to name names because
Really?
I'm not that kind of person. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was just not exactly what I expected out of it. But because I ended up joining student radio, I think I'm still happy I ended up there because my career wouldn't look the way that it does if it wasn't for that. I think that student radio in the UK is phenomenal. I think that, you know, the people that work on the committee, particularly my friend, I'm going to make sure that I say his name right, Scott Hasty, because I said it wrong at the awards and he still gives me crap for that. But as him in particular, he's really allowed students who are trying to become presenters and producers to get opportunities that most students don't get. Like for me, getting to interview LJ, others have got to interview like Wolf Alice. I don't remember if the 1975 ended up on there at one point, but potentially. Like they've done these huge things that have helped set them up for careers. And I'm just so impressed by it as a structure and feel so fortunate that I fell into it. So as much as there were parts of my uni experience that, education wise, I wish were more fun, I'm really grateful that I fell into student radio through it,
I'm so
particularly my station.
That's brilliant. Because what, you're doing 2 shows at the time there as well? You doing two
Um,
shows?
I did do 2 shows, not simultaneously though.
Okay.
One was my first show. It was called the Indie Bin. Now, at the time that I had moved to the UK, I didn't know that bin meant trash yet. Because bin here just means a container. Now, obviously, because
Yeah.
I say just chuck it in the bin, but it means that,
Yeah.
and they have been implying that the very good music I was playing was garbage, but that's not what we were trying to do. To be fair, I'm Canadian and my co-host was Egyptian, so we were both very much flying blind there. But I took a year off of being a presenter in my second year of uni because I was the head of our specialist station. So I was managing a bunch of stations and I wanted to focus on that. But because I started interviewing more bands that year and started to realize, oh, maybe I want to do this. In my third year, I came back with my show Bite of Sound and started to do more active interviewing, more of the sort of like all genres welcome new music concept that I've been focused on ever since. So yeah, that last show was really where things started to mold and take shape a little bit more.
That's amazing. That is so good. And you mentioned awards a minute ago as well. You won 3 different awards, didn't you?
I did.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were they like to win? Like, obviously, the gold and silver for best interview in
Yeah.
2017, silver for best female presenter 2018, and one other one, a student radio awards as well. I mean, what was it like to win
Yeah.
such prestigious awards?
It was shocking, especially that the first year when I won both gold and silver. Because I remember earlier in that day, those of us who had been nominated, we were invited to go on like a tour of the BBC and Global buildings, which was super fun. But I felt like, especially in that best interview group, I was seeing like all these people who clearly had like grown up with radio and like really knew their stuff inside and out. Some of them have already started working for the BBC. I'd actually run into one of them at a festival before, and this person just didn't seem like they were kind of like, okay, and again, I keep these very anonymous because I am not one to want to start drama. But like, basically I was like, I feel like I'm very much the rookie here. So like, there's no way in hell that I'm going to win, and then somehow I won both gold and silver. And I was, again, very shocked. But it kind of cemented for me, like, oh, maybe I am supposed to do this. Like, maybe I'm not as bad at this as I think I am, because I can be very hard on myself. I've gotten better, but at the time I was like, there's no way. And then to get silver for best female presenter, especially being up against like some really, really solid, like, especially like daytime presenters who just have to be so slick. Like, that's a skill that I don't have, and I admire those who can just be so like snappy and in and out. To manage to still rank silver, and that was really, really, really cool.
Oh, that is beyond amazing, incredible. You fully deserve it, because the work you do is amazing. It's fully deserved.
There is.
A pleasure. And how did it actually work? Did you put yourself forward for these awards, or did they reach out to you, or you reached? Okay.
Yeah, everybody across the UK in student radio just submits, like, if you want to. Obviously, you don't have to, but if you want to submit for those awards. I think one of my friends had encouraged me to submit a few of my interviews, and those two, made it through. And I don't remember where my head was at. I think it was like, I'm just going to do the best with this that I can, try and find the best like 3 minutes to submit, which is tricky, but I did. It's like, this is probably not going to go anywhere. I'm just going to chuck this in and see what happens. And here we are now. So yeah.
That is amazing. Okay, as you mentioned the BBC Award there as well. I know that with these student awards, obviously it's hugely recognised, and it's judged by top presenters, wasn't it? And producers from the BBC and Global. Yeah. Who were the judges at the time? Do you remember?
So technically, it's anonymous. It just says, like, when you get your feedback, like, returned to you, it just says, like, for example, like, producer at this station or presenter on Capital or whatever. So, but I do happen to know who one of them is. I do not know if I'm allowed to say. I'm wondering if he would be pissed.
We can always leave it if you want to. It's fine.
I'm wondering if it's really a big deal or not. Okay, I'm just to be safe, I'm not going to say it, but basically this person is a pretty major presenter and
Wow.
has since, like, I've spoken to him since about it, and he had told me that's why I found out, because I was like, I think it was that I had read the feedback and it very much sounded like it was in his voice. So I had spoken to him about something else and I was like, that was you, wasn't it? And he was like, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And he's ever since, like, whenever I've walked into like the building that he's worked at, if he's walked by me and I was meeting with someone, he would like point at me and be like, her, this one, talk to her, she's good. So he's kind of been like a really cool cheerleader for my career whenever I've been in the same space, and I've been profoundly grateful
Oh, that's
for
amazing.
that. Yeah.
Like when you get feedback from such amazing people, it's one of the best feelings ever, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I got
Amazing.
after the Julian Baker interview, this guy named Tom Power, who's kind of like Zane Lowe but in Canada. He does Q on CBC, which is another like deep dive. Whoop, just kind of smacked my mic. He does that, and I tagged him in a post because I had listened to his interview with her, and that was very inspiring to me. So I tagged him, and he responded back. He followed my podcast and said, like, like, this is a lovely moment with Julian, like, I forget, like, congrats or something. And that was very cool because he's also just phenomenal at his own work. So yeah, getting that reach out was very nice.
No, it's amazing. And sticking with BBC as well, didn't you even intern at BBC Radio 2 for a little while as well?
So I did like a kind of like unofficial work placement on the Jeremy Vine show very briefly, which
Oh, wow.
was, yeah, that was a very interesting time. Unfortunately, I had to cut it short because I ended up moving back home.
Mm.
And I was just kind of like a bit sick at the time, so I had to step away. But the brief time that I was there was, yeah, it's a learning experience. There are some interesting people that call into the Jeremy Vine show, because that was my job. I was answering the phones, and basically what you're doing is you're deciding if the people who call in have an interesting enough story to either be read out or directly put on air with Jeremy. So, you have your topics throughout. Like, he does it where he sets it up like 4 topics over the 2 hours. Every half hour switches topics. And so again, we'd have these people calling in to be like, well, I have this story or I have this opinion or whatever. And so now, obviously, you get some fascinating stories. You get some great, well-spoken, interesting people who we put through, and they get to be on the show. It's brilliant. But then you also get some really insane people. I heard some guy mention something about being the reincarnation of, I think it was Mick Jagger, who's still alive. And then some other lewd comments that I'm not going to, repeat
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
I
get that
hung up
out.
on him, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't even a like de-escalate situation. That was hang up
It's a
and just
straight hang.
don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is fascinating. I can imagine it's like a milder version of working at like a chicken shop at 3 a.m. Like, you just, you just get some like really weird people.
I was gonna say you must have got some weird calls during the time there.
Oh yeah, it was a time. It was a brief time, but it was a time. Yeah.
That's memories at least. um,
Good
but what?
stories.
Yeah, definitely. But you know what?
Yeah.
Outside of radio, you've also you served as creative manager at Fanbytes.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that like?
That was a baptism of fire for my 19-year-old self. It was like my first like adult job, I guess you could say. I was 19. I just finished my first year of uni. In fact, actually, I started it during like exam, or not exam period, but like essay period during my last semester
Mhm.
of my first year. So I started it at the worst possible time, like when I had like a billion assignments and somehow made it work. But yeah, it was a really great way to learn about like influencer marketing, getting to work with a startup, very much working in uncharted territory and taking on these like crazy responsibilities at my young age. But it was definitely a really great like formative experience to have at the time, because I learned how to like write briefs and come up with campaigns and really curate influencers and manage them throughout a project. Like, it was a really good as much as, it was very, what's the word I'm looking for? Again, it was very much that baptism of fire, very, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm so grateful that I got to do it and that it's really helped inform things that I do in the future.
For sure. 'Cause I know you mentioned about essays and assignments, had a million things to do. 'Cause I know you did a first class honours bachelor degree.
Yeah.
Was that correct? So how did you cope with doing so much at the same time?
It depends on when. At times I coped very poorly, and then at times I got better. So my first year, that semester in particular, I was doing, get ready for the list. I had my radio show. I was in the choir. I was in the musical theater society. I had a part-time job at my uni once a week. I was doing this startup. And of course, I had all of my assignments. And it's funny because like at the beginning of the year, like all of those were pretty chill and manageable. The problem is you forget that all of them have their deadlines at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was not a nice person for the last few weeks of my second semester of that year because I was just stressed and overworked all the time. So pro tip to people, say no to things. You're allowed, and it's just learn that. I was a incessant like yes man as a young person, and I've learned through just being broken by it not to do that. So yeah, that back then, God, I was not handling it well. Over the years, I learned how to say no to certain things. After actually both my last final semester of uni when I did my dissertation and then being a freelancer for a while, I started using this thing called Trello, which is like the best like little planning and to-do list app. And it basically just got me through because I would start like planning and sectioning things out weeks in advance just to stay on top of my life. I still use it now that I'm juggling all these projects. So yeah, that's kind of been the way that I do it. It's the balance of saying no, but also when you're working on a lot of things, just plan and plan and plan and make sure you write everything down. Like help put your social calendar in with your work calendar if you have to, just to make sure that you see everything.
Yeah, that's so helpful, so helpful. And how long after that were you working at? Is it Good Soldier Songs as well?
Good Soldier Songs. Yeah,
I was Soldier, yeah.
So that was a 2-week internship. So it was just like a little placement, but also again, a little baptism of fire. The first day they were like, "So can you write like an informational document for our artists on copyright?" And I was like, "You want me to what?" Because copyright law is just a nightmare. It varies from country to country. Licensing, like it's each country has like a different like what's it like board or something for it. So I basically had to like bullshit. Excuse me, I don't know if I can swear. But
you can swear if you want. It's fine.
Oh, good. Well, that'll change how I speak for the rest of this podcast. Yeah, I was just bullshitting my way through it, and luckily it went well. And then I was just doing lots of little bits and bobs for them. So that was again cool to be in a publishing label space to kind of learn for a little bit.
Amazing. And I know that before the podcast, actually, a little while ago, you mentioned, Okium as well.
I do.
Yeah. How did you know him?
So far. He played at my mate Chris's house several years ago, and just loveliest dude. Obviously super talented. Has done like, again, he's played with like Prince on tour, as you do. And then I think maybe like a year or so later, I was at this like Red Bull like a networking event for like young women in music and radio, and I met this girl. And like when you have like, I kind of say it's like the platonic equivalent of a crush. You're like, I want to be friends with that person so bad. They look so cool. Yeah. And so me and this person, luckily we really hit it off. We became good mates. Her name's Joy. And I looked at her last name when I added her on Facebook. It's like Borman. It's like, wait a minute. And then I realized, so she's Okium's younger sister. And as I told you in her own right, because I will very happily shout her out. She's the most supportive, awesome friend who just sends me jobs and advice and everything that she can. She's just like an encyclopedia, especially when it comes to punk, jazz, hip hop. She knows her stuff like no one else. She works for Secretly Group now, which I'm so thrilled that she got that because she really deserves like her. I don't know. She's been working so hard for years that she kind of deserved this moment. So yeah, I can't speak more highly of Joy Warman or of Okium, her brother. They're
Yeah.
just a boss family.
They are. And that is an amazing way to finish off the podcast. But I also
Yeah.
say thank you so much for today, Sophia. I really loved it. Thank you.
Yeah. Cheers for
No,
having me. This was so much fun.
that's my absolute pleasure. And where can people find you actually online as well before we go?
Yes, please find me so that I can eventually make money. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
So on Instagram and Twitter, I am under Sounds Like Sophia. Sophia is spelled with an F. And then I'm also on Instagram with my podcast Before the Chorus under Before the Chorus Podcast. Please, follow, like, subscribe, do all the things. Again, I hate doing that promo because it feels so cringy, but it's like, but also
Please.
I would like to eventually make money and not live in my parents' house. So if you could just do that, that would be like really sick. So yeah.
No, surely it will do for sure. But once again,
Cheers.
Sophia, thank you so much for today. Really loved it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And take care, everyone. Bye bye.